ado, I will let the panelists introduce themselves, starting with Jason.
Thank you. I'm Jason. I'm a software engineer, an endurance athlete, a creative. I think that the thing that makes me relevant to this panel, perhaps, is that I created one of the first consumer generative AI writing and research platforms. So back in 2020, years before ChatGPT came out, I was creating AI tools that were helping folks write and create using AI as a tool. It's obviously come a long way since then, in not just the technological sense, but also in a cultural sense as well. So excited to participate in this discussion. These days I work with a variety of companies and individuals to explore how they can use AI in their work. And I continue to use AI as my tool for creativity as well.
Thank you. Michael Lee. I am a trainer of companies in creative thinking and innovation mindset, founder of the Innotivity Institute. Innotivity is the word we use to condense creativity, innovation, and adaptability into one thing, because it's one thing. My connection to AI is really as a practitioner more than anything else. I've just put out a book called World Innovators Cup, which is a mashup of famous innovators from history playing soccer. And to do that required a lot of AI imagery, because we made trading cards of all of the players. You're welcome at any point today later to have a look at some of the inside there. But I learned a lot about how AI works and doesn't work, both in imagery and in text, in doing that book. So I'm speaking more as a practitioner, I think. Secondly, I'm studying one class away from getting my master's in creativity and change leadership at Buffalo State. And we've done some studies of AI there too, so that's my knowledge.
Hi, my name is Takai. I'm really happy to be here. I am a musician, lifelong, since before I could speak. But I'm also an AI professor. I've been doing research in AI for 40-some years, since 1984, when I started my PhD at Berkeley. I was one of the few that drove AI into machine learning and neural nets for natural language processing in my thesis, and you might have used things like Google Translate or Microsoft Bing. I should have led with Microsoft, I'm sorry. Microsoft Bing Translator. So I pioneered things like that with radical new language models. And for the last 10 years, I've been working really heavily on AI and humanity. And it's quite a different framing. I'm looking at the social fabric. I'm looking at what it makes humans human, which I believe is necessary to understand true AI, because true AI is actually trying to understand with mathematical precision how our human minds work. And 10 years of that work is summarized in this MIT Press book that came out 1 year ago called Raising AI. It has garnered a lot of different types of critical acclaim across the board, sort of organically. MIT doesn't have much marketing budget. But really pleased about that, because the paperback edition just dropped last week. I haven't even seen it. And the confidential news, not so confidential I say it, that hasn't been announced yet, is that after dealing with a year of thousands of people clamoring at me for, is there an audiobook? Is there an audiobook? That audiobook will be published in a few months by Penguin Random House.
Awesome. Do I need to use a mic?
Your voice or an AI voice?
Really?
Oh, my voice. This book was written with zero use of AI. Zero.
Perfect.
It's probably the last.
Maybe. So I wanted, first off, I want to leave time for questions, so thank you for your questions. But I wanted to start with, like, what is even the definition of creativity? So Michael, we talked about that a little before, and if anyone else wants to chime in as well, I thought what you had to say was pretty great.
Right, so there's like more definitions. How many people are in this room? There's more than that many definitions of creativity in this room, right? But there is one standard definition that you find on Wikipedia, you find in the traditional studies of creativity, which is that creativity means something is both useful and novel or new, right? And should I elide into
Go.
what you're saying?
Go.
So I read a study recently which was really interesting because it looked at, we have the normal arguments about is AI creative or not. Well, it's recombinant, it does that, we do that, it does that. But at the same time, it doesn't have a spirit, it doesn't have a soul, it doesn't have a drive to do something that is going to be poetically justified by the necessity of how important it is to my growth. But this had a very different, interesting scientific explanation of that AI is not as creative as we think it is. And that was that for AI generating as a LLM to be useful, it needs to be accurate. Right? So the more useful it is, the more the algorithm is looking for a way to justify what it's saying as the correct answer. Right? But in order to be novel or new, it must do the opposite. It must look for ways to justify to itself that what it's saying is not the obvious thing, that what it's saying is an unusual thing, therefore less comprehensible, and therefore less useful. So if you make a graph of useful versus novel, right, according to the study, really fascinating. AI basically, whenever it's more useful, it's less novel, and whenever it's more novel, it's less useful. Therefore, it has a sort of curve that limits its creativity to what quantified out of 1.25 out of 1, which is approximately the average level of creativity of a human. So this study was saying that literally scientifically, according to the way that AI functions, it is limited by its function to be about as creative as the average person. So I thought that was interesting.
Yep. Anyone else have comments? You good? Why don't
Yeah,
you go?
sure.
I'd love
I'm gonna
what's
go.
your definition of creativity?
Yeah, I should have mentioned one of my research areas, aside from natural language processing, is music AI, computational creativity, and new media arts. So in building models of creativity, we both do sort of this functional thing where we look at different creative processes, Margaret Bowden's, whether it's combination or synthesis or transformation, et cetera. And we show that our AI models actually do those. But I think I would turn around with this very interesting comment from I missed the citation, the paper that you were talking about. Who did that work?
I don't actually have a name.
Oh yeah, we'll look it up later.
We'll look
But
it up. It's in my bag. You want me to get it? I'll get it.
You got it.
real time. What I think we see what we go looking for. I mean, if we look for useful, then that's what we're going to find. There's nothing inherent about what an AI has to do or not. In AI you have reward functions, and so it's just what are you going to reward? What are you directing the AI to seek? And I think there's a lot of room for creative play in that the pure utilitarian view is overlooking.
David Cropton.
Great. I'll give you a question now. All right, I got a hot take. Here we go. So first off, I told you guys I was the dumbest person up here. So if you meet a musician or an artist or a painter or whatever, they proudly say, especially musicians, "Oh, my song and my album, my art was inspired by this band, this band, this band." And we say, "Oh, that's great." We don't say, "You stole from them, and how much money are you going to pay them?"
Unless we're Picasso,
Right.
and then we do something.
The lawyers. Yeah, we've seen some examples, right, where Bruno Mars has now got 73 songwriters on a song, stuff like that over time. But what's the difference between learning from it, versus being inspired by it? It's a complex question that we're going to have to figure out. So now I'll let Jason decide how to. It's on you.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. Back to the music argument, there's this video that's out there, I think it was Ed Sheeran, and he has the 4 chords, and it's every single song ever, every pop song ever is made up to these 4 chords, and they're just rearranged in different ways. In a similar way, I would say, and maybe this is a bit of a hot take or controversial take, I don't think I've ever had a truly unique idea. Every idea or thing that I've created has come from the amalgamation, the combination of everything that I've experienced, read online, taken in, and therefore it's a derivative of all those other works. One interesting point is we talk about music and art and text and writing and all these different forms of creative output. I'm a software engineer. My creative output is websites and apps and digital experiences, and the tools and the backbone, the pieces that make that up. They're not the music notes or the brush strokes, it's code. And I've seen over the past years of working with AI how much better it's gotten. So as we were talking about that study, I think it's really interesting. But I'm curious what models it was based off. If we run that same study later on as technology continues to develop, will we see something different? And that's something that I've experienced in the past few years, where when I started again in 2020, far after Dekai, you were in this space, but right when kind of generative AI, large language models were starting to kind of cross the chasm and start to put together sentences and paragraphs and code and then eventually pictures. At the beginning, everyone was like, this is never going to be a thing. AI is never going to be able to write. AI, okay, maybe it can do text, but it's never going to be able to do code, or it's never going to be able to come up with an image. And over the past, let's say, 5-6 years, we kind of keep pushing the bar. And I think that comes from a place of humans being a little insecure, I'll say. And sure, like today, an AI is not out here living, like in this room, experiencing the talking.
That we know of.
That we know of. But it could be, right? It could be have a video camera and taking in visual sensors. It could be taking in the audio. And that's not that different than what we are all doing. So there are some uncomfortable pieces here. And I think we're going to continue progressing. And if we can see that progress and continue to work with it and use it to our advantage, there are really opportunities to be even more creative and create even greater things.
Yeah. Michael, did you have a hot take?
Sorry?
What was your opinion? You're ready to say something about it.
There's a lot of thoughts. You're spurring a lot of,
Yeah.
both of these gentlemen are spurring a lot of thoughts. But one thing I was, this morning when I was here getting coffee the first time, I was speaking to a gentleman who was telling me a story about how Robert Rauschenberg gave de Kooning one of his most cherished drawings, so that de Kooning then decided to erase the entire drawing and present it as a piece of art.
Oh, okay.
And it made me think about the banana taped to the wall thing, right?
Yeah.
And it made me think, would AI, and this is a question that maybe have for you too, as people who've worked with AI a great deal, would AI think of those things before they've been thought of by people? Would those be artistic ideas AI would come up with before it existed as an idea?
Go for it.
I think the first thing to ask, and this comes from, like sort of a tradition of AI that is the original tradition, which is understanding ourselves, modeling ourselves. It's not just the last 5 years, everybody suddenly plowing into downloading the statistical prediction libraries off of the shelf, right? And so any question like that, the first thing I always do is I ask, does that happen in a human? Before asking, does it happen in an AI? Because I think a large part of the reason we don't understand AI in general is because we don't understand ourselves. And the thing about it is, where do your thoughts come from? We love our mythology of free will and creativity and self-determination. But we need to differentiate, sort of wishful thinking versus reality. Where did those thoughts come from? You're not in control of 99% of your mental processes. You think you are in control, but that's a story. You have no idea what those gazillions of neurons are doing, and you're not controlling those neurons. And your thoughts are emerging out of what? Your subconscious. And truly understanding the mind means understanding that's non-conscious part of our mental processing, which is what real AI is trying to do. It's mindfulness. It's paying attention to what your non-conscious brain is doing. AI is mindfulness, the ultimate mindfulness with mathematical precision. And so, these questions, where does the creativity impulse come from? Well, most of it is coming non-consciously, and it is a combination of randomness, driven by environment like anything else, and a combination of a certain degree of, sort of like us tolerating the hallucination. And then, as anyone who's done this would know, hallucination produces a lot of noise. Most of it is not just that it's not very useful, it's not very good. Right? It's like, people are like, it has not only no functional utility, it has no aesthetic utility either. Right? And so then that's when the conscious part of our minds kicks in, right? And it's kind of like reviewing that generated stuff, and it's filtering it. And once in a blue moon, if we're lucky, it kind of goes, oh, that passed the hey, that's kind of cool. What can we do with that? These are the processes that AI in the subfield of computational creativity are doing. We're literally trying to understand ourselves through the process of describing so accurately what our brains, largely non-conscious, are doing that we can implement a simulation of that description. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great, that was great. I do have another, I was over in France at the Cannes Film Festival, and my bag got lost, right? And Maxim throws a great party, but you have to wear pajamas, very respectful pajamas, not crazy ancient Rome stuff. So I needed to buy a pair of pajamas. So I'm walking through France. I know enough French to say mon français est mauvais, which is a stumbling through, I don't speak French very well. And so I downloaded whatever the first translator app I found that worked with my AirPods. It was definitely nothing that the guy had done. And so I'm stumbling through trying to figure out how to go buy pajamas, and I see a couple wearing like loungewear, right? But I don't want to insult them and say, hey, where'd you get your pajamas? So I'm trying to figure out how to articulate, hey, I like your loungewear. Where did you get it? So I type it in. All right. I say it out loud. I get giggles from them, and I get shock. And then the guy goes, ménage à toi? No. And I'm like, because I think I had just asked him, I'd love to see you guys out of your clothes. So I immediately deleted the app. I'm like, ménage à uno, which is like a mix of French and Spanish. I was total panic. I deleted the app. It occurred to me that the currency of this stuff is really trust. That's the main, does it work? Does it not? Did it have utility to me? Lawrence can do what he does because he has this trust, right? And authenticity. And that, I think, is what's missing in the creativity in AI space. So I just love, especially start with Dekai. I think everybody should comment on this. Is trust the currency? Am I wrong? Or what does that look like? You're the language guy. Let's start down there. I downloaded the wrong app, so.
Trust is really important in a whole spectrum of stuff that we're looking at in AI and humanity, which is my umbrella for AI, ethics, society, governance, public awareness, etc. I think that although trust is really important, it's sort of orthogonal to some of these other things. Like anything we talk about, there's also the trust dimension. Like self-driving cars. Do you trust the self-driving car? I mean, statistically, self-driving cars kill a lot less humans than humans kill driving. Humans are terrible drivers, especially here. Sorry, I'm an old New Yorker. I love New York. But, I think that we don't trust the self-driving car because we believe in its heart. We trust it rationally. This is, again, the difference between the conscious mind and the subconscious. The conscious mind says, rationally, yeah, higher safety rates, right? But what about our hearts? That's the non-conscious part. And our hearts, they're great, but they also have hundreds of unconscious cognitive biases that have been really well documented by, especially by Danny Kahneman and Amos Tversky. Danny Kahneman wrote Thinking Fast and Slow, which I highly recommend to anyone who hasn't read it. It's really easy to understand. and very revealing about our own minds. Really important for creative artists. Because when we understand ourselves, and when we understand how our unconscious is influencing us, not necessarily the ways that we like to tell the stories about ourselves, that actually amplifies our creative power. And we see dimensions that are beyond, sort of like, well, I don't even trust my own subconscious. So we talk about trust. It's like I need to have that conscious part of the brain, which is like 1% of my mind, like constantly cross-checking the 99% of my mental processes, which are cool, fast, very useful 80% of the time, and totally untrustworthy the rest of the time.
Don't you think, though, that the conscious part is limited and the subconscious has every memory and every imprint of who you truly are, and yet the conscious part has much more filters that were implanted through your, life experiences?
Our unconscious mind, the architecture of that, which today's neural networks, deep learning models, transformers are an extremely crude approximation of, do attempt to store all of that lived experience. But as you know, like we have trouble recalling. It gets really hazy with time and so forth, right? And there's a kind of compression effect that's happening. I think some of the other neural network models that are not as popular with the commercial hype right now are probably closer to how our minds actually work. They have more of a holographic kind of behavior. I don't know if you've played with holograms, like they have this property where you can just infinitely store things into them, which is really cool. And then you can take a partial pattern and you can make the holographic memory retrieve the things that are closest to it, but it does it kind of hazily. Like if you've seen something a lot or recently, it'll give you a very accurate retrieval. If it's been a while, and then you have the point where you're struggling to pull it out, right? And these are the things that creative artists are dealing with all the time. And one of the techniques, if you understand that, is to actually make use of that limitation, right? And so if you go into the liminal space, and we have all sorts of techniques for doing that, then you can actually try to make use of the fact that it's hazy to stimulate creating something new that still is meaningful. And that's your conscious mind directing that process. Like your conscious mind is the director. Yeah.
We should get questions. Get a comment?
Yeah, I guess my comment on I think trust is sort of a currency in the future as AI becomes more and more prominent. The way I typically think about it is audience. Like if you have an audience who trusts you, they've seen the work that you've done before in the past, they're going to continue following what you have and what you can do. And when AI and anyone with AI can create, right? I always say if 1,000 people can create the same app, the one that's going to win is the one that gets distribution and has trust behind it. So I think the trust is interesting. And you can also kind of tie trust and audience and presentation to the art examples that you were bringing up. I don't know if an AI could have come up with the banana on the wall, but maybe it could have. But even if we're talking about that banana on the wall example, if I just did that in some little gallery and it didn't get all this press and become well known, would it still have been the same amount of creativity as it was, because now everyone knows about it? Does it change our perception if we know that something was created by or with AI versus by or with a human? I don't know the answer to these questions, but I think this is the way that I'm thinking about it.
Or was the creativity actually in the marketing and promotion?
Yeah.
Or the banana itself. Just a small thing. Are people familiar with the 4 Ps model of creativity? Yes, no? Anybody?
Is it passion, project?
Process, product, press, person? No? So there's 4 different ways in that model of looking at creativity, right? From the process of, is the person creative? Is the process creative? Is the environment or atmosphere creative? Or, finally, is the product creative? And we're putting a lot of emphasis on the product, right? We're talking about, like, is the banana creative or not? When we talk about trust, we're talking about trusting that, mostly thinking about what you were saying, thinking about the product at the end. Do we trust the product? Did it come from a place? But we're not thinking at all, and maybe worth thinking about, do we trust the process? Do we even understand the process with AI? But most people, 99% of people, you guys do for sure, right? But 99% of people, including possibly myself, don't really understand the process the way that we'd like to. So can we trust the process? When we talk about person, what does that even mean when we're talking about AI? When AI is producing something creative, what is the person? It's actually a collective of every person that exists in the world, in history, since the beginning of, records being kept, right? So when we look at, in that model of different definition of creativity, looking at it from the 4 Ps, it starts to open up, for me at least, a lot more questions about, is AI creative or not? Because it's not just about, is its product at the end creative, it's about, like, a lot more pieces.
Yeah. We have, let's get his questions. Surely have questions. We have one right there.
I don't think I have a loud voice. Sorry. This might be an unpopular opinion, so hold your booze. I'm not particularly pro AI, and I think the main reason is the environmental effects. We haven't really talked about that, and I really want to have this kind of discussion about, like, people who have been, like, very on the back of it. And I obviously don't have a PhD, so I don't want to overstep. But how do we balance the usefulness that it does have with the environmental effects that it is causing with, like, the data centers and all that stuff?
Can I take this one? Oh, all of you, yeah.
Yeah, no, this is a pet peeve of mine, so I'm going to jump in.
It's not actually accurate.
There are a ton of memes that are floating around the media sphere that are just easy to grab onto, and they go viral. But the people who created those memes don't even understand the assumptions that they're making. True AI is modeling the human mind. In contrast, transformer-based LLMs that power, Claude and ChatGPT and Grok and Gemini, those are not. Those are very crude. I'm going to give you, okay, so I have a dog. She is super cute. Her name is Boba. She's bundle of love, not the brightest bulb. I've been trying to reason with Boba for 6 years why she shouldn't poop on the living room floor. And she stares at me with those loving eyes, not following a single word of what I'm saying. How do I have to teach Boba? Well, it's basically, does the right thing, it's like good girl, have a treat. Does the wrong thing, bad girl, time out. Positive and negative reinforcement. Pavlovian conditioning. That's how we're teaching transformers. The neural net architectures that power all these AI chatbots today. Transformer neural net architectures, roughly, are dog brains, but they don't get tired. You don't have to feed them, except for electricity. And there's nobody arguing for animal rights when it comes to transformers. So what do? We abuse them. How long would it take for me, if Boba never got tired, to, through good girl, bad girl training, how long would it take me to train Boba to be good at spitting out the likely next word, which is what large language models do? Oh my God, it would take an exponential amount of time. I can't even get her to stop pooping on the living room floor. Let me make this more concrete for a second, okay? Transformers, even GPT 2.0, if you remember 3-4 years ago, was trained on trillions of words of English data. That's like 10 to the 12th or 13th words. Okay, and it was still making mistakes that a 4-year-old toddler would laugh at. Remember that? How many words of English would you have to train that 4-year-old toddler on for that toddler to get to that point? Any idea?
Not that many.
15 million words, give or take. That's all it takes over their entire 4 years of life. That's 10 to the 6th or 7th. Do the arithmetic. Training the transformer models, even GPT-2, let alone GPT-5, doesn't just take 10x or 1000x. It takes literally the square of the amount of data and training. If I have a student in my class, I have to repeat more or less the same things, the square number of times as all of the classmates. I am not going to say that that student is the brightest one. Transformer-based chatbots are models of, they're AI in the sense they're artificial idiots. True intelligence is small and smart. Do you guys have any idea how much your human brain
Another
uses?
question?
How many watts of power does your human brain use?
One small. Okay.
12 watts.
I was going to say 12 volts.
If you're thinking really hard, 24. We do not need exponentially expensive, environmentally destructive data centers for true AI. The problem right now is our market dynamics, our political dynamics that are causing the tech companies to try to erect moats against any possible rivals through the game of, I'm gonna play chicken with all the competitors that I can raise money faster than you and I can raise more money than you, and I'm gonna just wait till you get chicken out. By brute force scaling these artificial idiots. That's the problem that we should be staring at.
All right. One quick question, then then it's lunch.
Actually, I wanted to ask you a question because you're
Okay.
in the content
Yeah.
distribution
Yep.
area. And I'm finding myself increasingly frustrated when I'm offered things based on what I viewed. It would drive me crazy if, because I had a falafel on the street, that the only choices I would ever get from now on are that type of food. And I find myself every time I'm on a platform, I'm being served up options. Because I might want to walk on the wild side and watch horror tonight and watch something completely different tomorrow, a stupid comedy. And how do you manage that, as we have a lot of creators in the room who are trying to get their content out there?
Yeah.
I feel like with as many choices as there are now, the choices keep narrowing because these tools are used to try to serve up content.
Yeah, so I can answer that as a marketer, and so I'm 53, so my walk on the wild side would also just be watching a horror movie. That would be me partying hard. But so I've actually spoken a lot with people at Google, Microsoft, and Facebook about building the algorithms to be more like responsible parents. I have 7 kids. I'm proud to say I've got my 15-year-old girl with me, and we ate at Masa last night, right? Sat at the sushi counter. She ate everything, ate every single bite of everything. But if I hadn't introduced her to that early, she'd still, and I got 7 kids, so there's still a couple that are in chicken nuggets and mac and cheese world. But as a creator, I think distribution at this point is your audience, right? Like, distribution is your audience. That audience can then take you and bring you, we're seeing it right now. Kid on YouTube makes sketch comedy, and then he makes a horror film called Milk and Cereal. He puts it on YouTube, makes another movie for $750,000 that Focus buys for $15 million, and it's going to make more than Steven Spielberg's movie. That's obsession. We saw it again with Backgrounds. A savant kid sees a post and begins making content for a tiny community of people, right? And so the backstory is really what that was about. Everybody's sitting there saying, oh, kids don't go to movies, they scroll verticals. And I'm like, no, we literally just had, the Kane kid, I met him, he was 19 when he made that movie, right? He built it in Blender. And he used that as essentially a storyboard, right? So what they had in common was backstory and audience, right? if we're sitting there holding our fingers, waiting for the algorithm to get us in front of somebody, you've already lost. Just by being here, you're ahead. Because one of the algorithmic inputs is proximity, right? That's the way we always think these things are listening to us. It's because Jason and I talked about something. He mentioned it to me. I Googled it quietly to not look stupid. And then later, he gets an ad for it because there's an assumption that we talked about it because we had proximity. So I think that is key. Audience, make sure you have your own audience. And it doesn't have to be 1 million people, right? Like 10, right? If you have 10 people that love you, that will take your stuff and promote it, you never know who they can get it in front of. So don't be discouraged. What I would say is create prolifically. And just don't be discouraged if Mr. Beast, the biggest YouTuber in the world, he literally screamed into the wind for years. Nobody followed him, right? And what he did was be prolific, reinvest everything he had back into bigger and better. And maybe he's gone too far at this point, but you see what he's doing now is going back and kind of behind the scenes helping young creators, a lot of them, and he's doing it pro bono. So find your people, find your audience, and be prolific.
That is a perfect